All right, so welcome to Visionary Leaders with Sandeep Bhalekar. Today we have a guest, Mr. Rahul, with us. He has enormous amount of experience in enterprise architecture across government and private sector. So welcome, Rahul, on the podcast.
My pleasure.
So we'll start with your journey, right? So starting from your uni days, and we want to see how you have grown and what you have done so far.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think I look back and I think key takeaways for me has been that I have never been satisfied with the status quo. So I did my engineering, realized I knew about technology a lot, but I didn't know how things happen in real life. So I started working, went to the plant, working in a plant, and then I realized I don't know about finance, so I did my MBA. I then did sales and marketing. And then it felt, it's not really my cup of tea. Went back into software because you study software by default when you do engineering. And then one thing led to another, another master's at Cranfield in England on high performance computing, two startups, and then moving to England, and then coming to Australia. It's been just whirlwind tour for me. So I worked in England, I worked in Singapore, I worked in India, and now I'm working at in Australia. And architecture came so I was probably a coder first in life. I've always been like that. Started at these two startups. I matured them from 2 or 5 people organizations to about 100 odd. And I've always been a coder, but the support I got from my seniors here. I gave it to others in those industries, and then I also let them go, let them challenge the status quo and do something different. I think it's been interesting, and I think now we are another cusp of change of the industry, so to speak. Civilizationally, I think we are at a different point with AI. So we look forward to the next change.
So we'll talk about digital transformation. I think we're talking about your digital nomad life. I can call that. Across the globe, you have played multiple roles, various, and you did startups. You're working with government on very important roles. So when you look back on digital transformation, adoption of a new technology, what is that learning you have, and what is you want to suggest our viewers with AI especially?
I think that's a very good question. I think any journey starts with a destination in mind. So I would first say that people should know where they want, what they want, and about, what are they trying to achieve. You can go out of your home and start a journey, but if you don't know where you're heading, it won't really take you there. So like the same thing for AI. If you want to, you look at your business first and you understand what are you offering today? What can it do better? What can you do better? And then see what are your use cases for adoption of any new technology. It is not related to AI. It could be something completely different day after tomorrow. But the idea is you start with an outcome. What do you really want to achieve? I think that's where the success lies. And then you're able to measure it. Then you're able to bring life to it. And if you want to cut the risk, you can always do POCs, and you can do proof of concepts and prototyping. You just name the industrial design, which we already know. Use those patterns to actually arrive at a outcome which is not at scale but proves the point you're trying to make. There'll be a lot of learning for you there, and you'll get your stakeholders back on track.
So you are basically creating multiple architectures for really important organizations. So what are the key learnings, especially related to AI, you have had recently?
Yeah, so I think one has to understand that AI is touted as a silver bullet now, and it's becoming overused. Really have to be very careful of that, because that is where it's like a wave, and everybody wants to ride the wave without knowing where the wave is taking them. So one has to be aware of that. The second thing is that you have to understand that AI works because you have data. So how good are you managing your data? Do you really understand your data sources? Do you understand what quality, availability, confidentiality, all those concepts of the data are there? If you cannot understand your data, or if you do not know your data, you don't know your data ownerships, AI is a far journey, it's a far away land for you. But yes, if you have understanding of your data, you understand the concepts, you understand what your regulations are, you understand your industry, then of course you can be on that. But my point would be that before you dream of AI, dream of data first.
No, that's a really interesting point. And in Australia, it is more relevant because no one is talking about data quality here. Everyone wants to have that red button when they press, they go on go on the Mars. That doesn't happen. So knowing that, and obviously we'll talk about more. So want to know like your process when you do data engineering in the architecture. You consume data from various source systems. What do you see, like and what organizations across Australia should actually look at?
I think there is a very interesting concepts here, and there are multiple concepts which you can tie together. One concept is of value streams. So people have thought about agile, then they went to scaled agile, and and then they trashed the waterfall, and everything else is happening in between. That's one area. How do you organizations organize themselves as teams? How do they behave at scale? Because the problem when you are small is different. The problem when you scale is different. And then you also have to understand, your, if I say to somebody, do you understand your conceptual data architecture? Very rarely would people understand those 10 entities which the government plays with or the organization plays with. Like in certain organizations, we have simple models which define location, events, things like that. So you need to be mindful of that. And then, of course, then the logical models, come in. So firstly, have you defined your data architecture? Do you understand your source systems? Is it ownership of systems understood? What are your governance around that, before it goes to a downstream system or it gets aggregated into a data platform? So that entire cost of delivery has to be understood. It is not just the aggregation of data. It's not just cleansing of data, the quality of data. It is the cost of servicing a service request. So what is that value chain there? So I would suggest to organizations, create your value streams first. Understand your value streams. Value streams will not only help you to organize your workforce, will also understand you to understand your data assets and assets within the organization. So start with mapping what you do and then say, how do we do it? And then what it takes to do it. So that would be and it doesn't take much to do this.
No, definitely. I think that's really eye-opening for organizations where they want to do the process rather than, I think, adopting technology just for namesake. Obviously, they have to start from the process development, and I think you have explained that pretty well. But we'll take a step back, right? And you have done double masters, and want to know why you did that, and obviously what was the implications of that.
I just challenge myself. I am never happy at where I am. I'm always wanting to learn things. Even now I'm doing something completely different. So I'm nearly at 80% done with another degree I'm doing. But the point is that quest for knowledge never gets completed. For me, whatever I have done, whatever I've learned, I've grown from my approach, how to connect things. And that is what education teaches you, a structured way of questioning your assumptions, looking back and saying, being ready for change. I think that's what gets me going.
Right. And then 2 startups on top of that?
Yes. So that was an interesting journey. I was very well, positioned in organizations, and I knew my career path. But then again, that, as I told you, I have a issue with status quo. So I knew this is the way I would head. Probably, VP at 30 or whatever. But then I didn't want to do that. I wanted to create value. For me, creating value is a reward in itself, and everything else falls around it. I'm not saying you don't create value in other organizations, but I wanted to do something which would change. Like at that time, Khan Academy was coming up. At that time, streaming was starting. At that time, what we are now talking, Spotify came much later. So we are from that generation which came with YouTube. So we created YouTube. So we created those infrastructures. And for me at that time, that was the joy, so working with big organizations, but focusing on certain areas which nobody was working on and using that technology to transform lives. So that gives me kick. That's what I do things.
Right. No, that's perfect. So what is the key learning from the startups? You have anything which you have taken and then obviously implemented that in the...
I think be ready to pivot, because you may start with something, you may have an idea, and you go about doing that idea, and then you realize the world is not ready for it. What is world ready for? Pivot towards that. Because what you don't want to do is have burnouts. What you don't want to do is disappointments. It's better to have something than nothing. So go for that pivot. And then what happens is, if you open the other door, that leads to more doors. But if you do not open the other door and you say, no, that is the only thing I want to do, and that's where I'm going to die, it doesn't, it's not going to make sense. So use a path and then keep on doing rather than, waiting for the miracle to come and for it to succeed. It may not, but something else will succeed. So that's been my learning.
No, that's perfect. So, Rahul, next segment we are gonna go with rapid fire. But before we go into rapid fire, want to get your thoughts on agentic AI, which is buzzword, and obviously everyone is talking about that here in Australia.
See, again, I think it's an interesting point. It may not succeed, and it may just be useful in certain areas, and AI would be. Now, you would have heard that OpenAI, the chief economist is in Australia, and today's article was $110 billion improvement in our economy till 2030. So it's just 5 years, and we would be having AI would add 110 billion to the economy. Now, what they're saying is most of it will come from productivity. So where does the productivity come into this picture? We need to think about that. We need to think about how workforce training will come, what laws will come, what kind of impact it will have on people, because industrial revolution has had an impact on us. How the AI revolution is going to have an impact. Then security, privacy concerns. So there is lots to unwind in this. And you would have heard, today's paper says that tax reduction for companies which want to use AI, that's great, but what about those touch points where AI is not successful? What about that, right? So we need to be having a mindful impact of this sector and understanding a tapered approach to that. I'm all in for innovation. I want that. But the history tells us that unrestricted industrial revolution has had its social impacts. Capitalization has had its social impacts. This whole process of, industrialization, but moving to the low-cost economies has had its social impacts. So one has to be mindful of that, what we are doing and what will be the larger impacts of that, and then work in hand with that. I think Australia is well poised for it.
Right. And what was the previous technology when probably the cloud adoption or probably, mobile tech, internet, what was that, which you can correlate AI adoption to?
I can't really.
No.
I can't, because even mobile, it allows us to, it allowed it to reach people. It skipped. I come from a generation where the phone lines used to be, much prized possession in a household. And today there are 10 phones in a family, right? So that quantum leap happened. But this AI is not AI. It is actually beyond that. So you've got quantum computing next to it, yeah? So that's something which they're talking about. Then super intelligence. Zuckerberg is talking about that now. So again, I think there's a lot of gloss, but we need to understand what are the facts and how do we assign ourselves to those facts and then mature with it. So I think the take a stepped approach would be much better rather than getting clouded by the glamour of AI. And I can't really correlate it. I think the best way I can say is if what it promises today, it will be an industrial revolution, but it's not upon us now. It may take some time, maybe 5-7 years, but we have to mindfully walk through this.
Great. So that's a perfect time for us to go into next segment. It's going to be interesting, a rapid fire round, and we'll just go through the questions and we'll take you there. So we are in the next segment. It's a rapid fire, and we are with Rahul. So Rahul, the first question is biggest myth about digital transformation in one sentence.
Biggest myth in one sentence. That's going to be interesting. Just bring in the new technology and it'll work.
Right. So next question is about one tool, framework, or methodology you can't live without.
Framework or methodology I can't live without. I think I'll take TOGAF as one. I just refer to it every time I need to, even though people may question it, but that's one. I've learned about SAPSA as well. So these are all just frameworks to allow you to think in different dimensions. I think that'll be two of them.
So next question is cloud, AI, or analytics. Which will disrupt the business models with most in the next decade?
You said cloud?
Yeah, cloud, AI, or analytics.
Or analytics.
Yeah.
Well, AI would be, but the point is AI without analytics, without cloud, I think they're all merging into AI, to be honest, so, and that might go into quantum, so who knows?
Right. Perfect. So next question is best book, podcast or resource every architect need to have?
I think you need to have that DevSecOps books. You need to read those. I think it's called the Phoenix Project and the next one to that. These are two excellent books which actually correlate your practices in an organization onto delivery. So they're on my iPad always. I like to read them again and again and again.
If you could change one thing in tech industry overnight, what it would be?
Overselling.
Overselling. Okay. So next is like, what's the most unconventional lesson you have learned as a learner in tech?
Unconventional lesson.
Yeah, because you have been like, you said you learned, you had startups and so on and so forth. So what is the learning aspect unconventionally you have done?
I think the only I think the structure is that you have to be quite adaptive in your approach, and that means always never having an opinion on something, always trying to understand that and then formulate a view. Opinions can get you in a wrong place, but if you understand the landscape and you have a view today, it might change tomorrow, but you have a view. So that's what I like. Now, I don't have opinions on things.
Okay, the best organization you have worked for so far?
It's the people, not the organizations. So, the gentleman is sitting next to me. So,
All right. So the best technology you have used so far in last your career throughout?
best technology.
Yeah.
In sense of like,
Like
maybe streaming. It was been my understanding. I loved it because not only it has protocols in it. How do you Spotify as a movie would tell you what they did to actually get the music to you in an instant. So how they hacked the TCP/IP, how they wrote the protocol again to do that, because you can have lossless and lossy kind of things, and then TCP/IP was meant to be a different way. So I like that aspect of it.
So most difficult architecture you have ever created?
I think it's not the architecture creation, is actually getting the stakeholders on board, which is most difficult aspect for architects.
Right. So yeah, that's it. Like, thanks a lot, Rahul. So that was Rahul, and we had a wonderful conversation. So thanks a lot for being part of our podcast.
Sure, my pleasure. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
thank you.